Hello, this is Michel Sorbet and this is a new episode of Wojennik TV. As you all know, I am a great fan of Napoleon, I'm a great fan of the Napoleonic Wars period, and I'll always take a closer look and a very interesting look at all the games which are covering this period. One of such games is a game published in 2008 by the Spanish publisher Bellica Third Generation, which is called Tomb for an Empire, which is also the first game published in the Age of Muskets series. Now, the Peninsular War was, without any doubt, a very cruel war, a very long war which drained a lot of French troops, a lot of French forces, and ultimately was one of the reasons why France was defeated in 1814. In French culture, this war is sometimes called as the Guipier Espagnol, the Spanish wasp nest, because it was such a dirty war, such a difficult war to fight, that it is often referred to as the most brutal part of the Napoleonic Wars. Now, the game published by Bellica enables us to recreate all the Peninsular War from its start up to 1814. This is a big title with a lot of components, a game at the same time which has a very diverse time of play, because you can end some scenarios in up to 20 minutes playing single battles, or you can play even the whole campaign or the whole war from 1808 to 1814, which will take us, for instance, 50 or 60 hours. It all depends on your time, on your gaming preference. The author of this game is Francis Coronzo, and the game is for 2 to 6 players, so it is also a very interesting range of players, because it is not only a 2-player games. It is also a game which will be suitable for bigger gaming groups. Today I would like to show you how the elements of this game look like, and at the end of this video I would like to give you also my initial thoughts. So let's begin and let's start the unboxing of Tomb for an Empire. Here is Tomb for an Empire, the first game published in the Age of Muskets series. As you can see, the box cover with one of the most famous paintings depicting the Peninsular War, the rendition of the French forces after the Battle of Bailén. Now, on the second side of the box, on the back of this box, you can take a look at how the map will look like, how will some of the counters enclosed in the box also look like, and also a description of what the game is all about. We get also the possibility to take a look at the game scale, and it will be units, brigades and divisions. It is also a game for 2 to 6 players. The time will be from 10 minutes to 100 hours depending on the scenario on the campaign chosen. Finally, 1 centimeter on the map will be approximately 25 kilometers in real terrain. The game is very well suitable for team play because it is ranked 8 in a scale to 10. The interactive play is rated also as an 8. The simulation, on the other hand, is rated as a 9, so it is a highly detailed game, which is a game which enables us to simulate the Peninsular War in a very detailed way. Now let's take a look at the components of this title and let's see how those detailed components look like. Now we receive a lot of plastic bags which will be used to store the counters which are somewhere on the bottom, at the bottom of this box. We receive also 2 dice, as you can see, a white one and a blue one. Both are 10-sided dice, nothing exceptional here. Then we get 2 game maps because the playing area will be quite big and the Iberian Peninsula will be represented on 2 different maps. Now this is the eastern map, which not only shows a part of Spain, it shows also part of southern France. As you can see, we get the Pyrenees and some French towns. We get Perpignan, we get Toulouse, Tarbes, Pau, Orthez, Bayonne. But the action, of course, will be set in Spain. So we get some mountains, we get some clear terrains, we get some broken terrains. All this is described in the terrain key part of this map with some towns, castles, defensible towns. We get also a random events table, and at the bottom of this map, a very interesting, very important part of the game. This will be the tactical map on which battles will be taking place. So this is another game which uses this system, enabling us to transfer the focus from the strategic scope towards the tactical. Towards a tactical map. Well, for instance, Cortes was such a game. I presented it on Wojennik TV some time ago. Another example would be the use of Space Empires alongside Talon, which would enable us to recreate the battles fought between individual spaceships. And here also we get this tactical map. We also have the turn track with years, with months. And this track begins on the western map, which is of the same size, but which shows us the western part of the peninsula with Spain, with its southern part, with Granada, with Arcos, but also with the Portuguese coast and Portugal, and the central and northern part with Madrid in the center of the map, and with, for instance, also Oviedo or La Coruña, where the forces of General Moore were attacked and eventually evacuated during some early stages of the Napoleon's intervention in Spain. So this is a map, as you can see, without a hexagonal grid. This is a map with regions, with borders. So we'll be placing units on this map, but then when fighting battles, we will be transferring the forces to the tactical display. Apart from the maps, we receive a lot of additional charts, of additional player aids. This is a counter examples, military forces. So look at this. This is the great diversity of the units found in this game. We get British cavalry units, British infantry units, Royal Guard, pro-French Spanish infantry, British artillery. We get Polish infantry and Polish cavalry, because Poles also fought alongside French forces during the Peninsular War. We get a lot of different French units, from light cavalry towards even French Guard or Young Guard units. So a lot of different unit types will be used in this game, and a lot of additional markers as well. For instance, markers which will be used to indicate British naval bases, guerrilla levels, line of communications, depleted zones. So extremely a huge amount of additional markers used for different purposes. We get additional displays on which we will be able to stack units comprising different army corps, and they will be used both by the French player and by the Allied player. As you can see, we get the Imperial Armies display, two of them, and also the Spanish and British Armies display with a place for the leader and its units. We get also some charts where we will be able to write information about the different units which are part of the core. Maybe they will be used if we decide not to use those displays. I am not sure at the moment. I'll have to check it while reading the rules. We have also a player aid showing us the leaders, both the Allied leaders as also the Imperial leaders, with some different stats, each of them with their own name, some of them with an asterisk, which means that leaders marked with an asterisk also command as U. Okay, so a lot of things will be going on here. Then additional charts, 2 of them, 1 for each player. Here we get the battle sequence, combat resolution modifiers, a huge list. This is player's aid chart 2 with the pursuit table, with the artillery bombardment table, again with some additional modifiers. Player aid chart 3 shows the leaders. So this is the second one of this player aid, but player aid chart 1, again in 2 examples, will show us the troop values both for the imperial and the allied side, and also the attrition table, the activities table, and an HQ activity points formula which reminds me of a maths book. Then we receive something very interesting. This is an example of play which focuses on scenario 3, Talavera. I always like games in which we get such examples. It is much easier to understand how the game works, especially if it has some graphic examples, and I see that we get some pictures depicting what happens. This is a very detailed example, as you can see, which will be surely very interesting to read. We get also an example of how a tactical battle looks like. So this is a very nice addition. I very much appreciate it. It's great that it was added to the game. Then we get the rules, but we get not 1 but 2 rule books, because as mentioned earlier, Tomb for an Empire is meant to be a game in a series of games, the Age of Muskets. So we get, for instance, the series rules, which are, as you can see, printed on black and white paper without any graphical examples, which is somewhere close to 20 pages long, with also some additional information, the designer's notes. So the rules actually take about 15 pages. Then we get the designer's notes, as you can see, explaining some rationale behind supply, marches, combat mechanics used in the game. The second document, which is 44 pages long, are the exclusive rules and the scenarios. But don't be afraid, the rules governing this opus of the Age of Musket series takes only 6 pages, and from page 7 up to the end we get the scenarios. And as you can see, a lot of scenarios, very different ones, depicting different battles, depicting different moments of the Peninsular War, with a different time of play, with a different quantity of forces used. So depending on the time, depending on our preference, we'll be able to choose from this huge diversity of scenarios something interesting. Also player notes, and also suggested additional reading at the end. So this is always also a nice addition. And finally the counters. The counters which arrived from Spain. Thank you a lot, Bellica Editions. We receive 6 counter sheets depicting the Allied leaders, as you can see. So we get Cuesta, we get Wellesley, Blake, and all the major leaders which were leading forces during the Peninsular War. Troops, Spanish troops, British troops, as you can see. The units are depicted by a soldier's silhouette with some stats on them. The same applies to the French forces, so we get all the major officers with Napoleon himself, with Régnier, with Rey, Ney, Bessières, Junot, and all the major generals or marshals which were leading troops during the Peninsular War. And of course the French but also Polish units or the Allied units fighting alongside French troops. The third counter sheet is with some additional units, with some wounded units, as I believe. They will be maybe used to track information, or maybe to indicate armies not fully exposed. So maybe we'll be using also to indicate the forces of such armies. I do not know at the moment. Then another counter sheet, number 4 this time, with also some cavalry units, with some infantry units. Here also some Spanish troops. What is interesting is also this part of this sheet, because we get also some terrain features which will be placed on the tactical display, as I believe, during battles, where those objectives will be an important element of the battlefield. And the 2 last counter sheets are again this time counter sheets A and B, with some markers which will be used, for instance, for depots, as I believe, and additional ones which will be described in the rules. You can take a look at how they look. Quite pretty, I must say. I hope that they will be of a good quality. Look at this. Of course, I'll probably take care of them, and after removing them from the sheet, I will be rounding them, but I'll show you them during a future review. So a lot of counters, as you can see, 6 counter sheets, really a huge amount of counters, and this is all. That's all when it comes to the components of Tomb for an Empire. Let's pass now to a short conclusion. The elements of Tomb for an Empire are really breathtaking. You get really a lot of elements. You get 6 counter sheets with a huge quantity of counters depicting different troops, different markers. So a lot of work now awaits me. I'll have to punch all those counters, sort them, round them, and then I will be able to start my first game. What I think is extremely interesting is the fact that you receive a great palette of scenarios. You get several ones, some smaller ones, and also the campaign scenarios, which will enable you to recreate the whole Peninsular War. I'll probably start by some smaller ones in order to see how the game works in the tactical aspect, in order to play some smaller battles. But then I'll surely start also some bigger ones in order to see how the game works on this strategical layer. Now, my first thoughts are that this is a big game, a game which will cover a very interesting period, with also a lot of details in it. I remind you that the game was rated 9 in a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to the simulation aspect. So I expect very detailed rules. I expect rules which will enable us to recreate how the Peninsular War and its special elements such as guerrilla tactics or other things looked like. So I'm thrilled to read the rules. I'm expecting some interesting new mechanics, and I will give you my opinion about this game in a future review. Up until then, take a look at our all other movies. We have some videos, we have some other unboxings. And this was the unboxing of Tomb for an Empire from Bellica Third Generation. I wish you a fantastic day and see you next time.